And welcome everybody to this month's edition of The Wellness Policy. We are back. We're back for another month. I am back after a bit of a hiatus, but I'm very happy to sit in this seat again. But I want to thank Jordan Goodman and Neal Flanagan for doing such a great job over the past 2 episodes. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing well mentally. Physically, I've had a bit of a rough week, but I don't think it's what John has. I've been taking the tests pretty much every day. I think just have a heavy cold. But otherwise, I'm in good form way. Thanks very much.
That's good. Good to hear. How about you, Jordan? Mentally and physically, what's the update?
I'm okay. I don't need to get into it. I still got this post-COVID shit, but I am going to a party tomorrow, and I will be wearing a Tinkerbell costume, so I'm very excited.
Okay. No context needed for that either.
You gonna post pics?
I haven't seen a preview.
Pics.
I've already seen the pictures, and he hasn't even been. He hasn't even been to the party yet. But that fourth voice means we have a guest for this particular episode. We are here to talk about fatherhood, and who better to bring on than the Scarborough Dad himself? If you can dad Scarborough, you can dad anything. How are you doing, Mike Murray?
Doing great, Wai. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule just to kind of fit this in. You were doing a bit of dadding yourself earlier this morning.
It's a big dad day today.
Yeah,
and that's why it's important to do this show.
And I look forward to speaking to you about it. Of course, we are here to talk about fatherhood. We are doing this on Thursday afternoon, and I just given the topic, I would be remiss not to talk about 2, very notable tragedies that have taken place in our community, just announced this morning. And I just wanted to make mention of and send our condolences to the families of Kevin Nash. Announced today that his son, Tristan, has passed away suddenly at the age of 26. Also, AEW's lead video engineer, Brian Muster, a father of 2, passed away as well. So our thoughts and condolences to the family of those 2 members of our community. And, as we'll discuss throughout the rest of the episode, perhaps just a constant reminder to, give a tighter hug than usual to your loved ones today. But we are here to talk about fatherhood. And, this has been a topic, of course, for me personally, that I've considered doing an episode on for quite some time. And the fact that, we were deciding whether or not I should have done it, maybe we should have done it earlier this summer. And then for whatever reason, timing wise, or maybe just kind of the feeling of like maybe waiting until we got into the period of fatherhood, we decided to do it now. And realistically, there's this is something that I think we could have done at any point, because I imagine it'll continue to evolve and it'll continue to grow. And whether or not, you are a parent, I hope that you might be able to get something out of this conversation. Just one other thing, and it's the fact that we were debating whether or not we should be calling this episode Parenthood instead of Fatherhood. And I felt like, I think motherhood is in itself such a big thing that we want to probably dedicate a particular episode on a little bit later on, in our schedule. So we're going to focus on the fatherhood aspect this time around. And let's, maybe go around the circle here and discuss perhaps getting into the conversation. How do we enter the conversation of fatherhood being this broad? Jordan, when you and I were discussing the topic first, what kind of were you expecting topics wise to get into today?
I think it naturally came up when you shared the news with me a while back that you would be a father. And I am not a father. I don't have plans to be a father anytime in the near future. So just relating to you as a friend, I was naturally curious about how that feels, what that means, and how you're relating to this experience, which is a fucking trip, I'd imagine, to become a father for the first time.
It certainly is. And maybe we'll kind of get into like, the several stages of even maybe the understanding of it. But what about you, Neal? Like, when broached upon the topic, what were some immediate thoughts about things that we would end up discussing today that came to mind for you?
I have to admit, one of the first thoughts I had was, what am I going to bring to this discussion? Because, like Jordan, I'm not a dad, and there's it's a very low likelihood I'll become one for reasons we can maybe get into a little later on. But they're kind of obvious in my case. But both my brothers have kids. I've been an uncle for a long time. I'm in the age bracket where nearly all of my male friends are dads. So yes, rather like Jordan, when I found out that you and Pauline were expecting, it was kind of that sense of what does Wai have in store? Does he know what he has in store? You know, what about your friends who are parents, and of course you're an uncle as well, and also what I've gathered from my brothers, especially, I suppose that's the closest I've been to physically to, a newborn and the day-to-day of that is, the idea of, yes, you can read all the books, you can look at YouTube videos, you can ask advice, but when it hits, what's that really like? And I see that there's plenty of people in the audience that happen to know, not just Mike, but I can see Sino here as well, and Chris and others who are parents, and they'll be able to relate to that too.
Certainly, absolutely.
Neal, you may be a father to none, but I'm sure I'm not the only one that's called you daddy.
Well, I did wonder at first when this topic was floated, have I been sold a bill of goods? This is not what I thought this was going to be. My notes are all wrong.
Oh boy, yes.
My little joke.
Just a little sample of why Neal Flanagan has been such a great addition to this podcast. If anything, just to make Jordan Goodman bring out more of Jordan Goodman for all of us to enjoy. But
but why we've needed you back, Wai, and welcome back. I'd like to say that too.
Well, okay. Of course, our special guest here is one of the most experienced, and I will honestly say, somebody that I've always viewed as a bit of a role model, for how to do all of this. He is Mike Murray, and father of two. First of all, Mike, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the ages? How long have you been a dad, basically? How long have you been doing this stuff?
Pushing 14 years now. My oldest daughter, Vivian, is 13. My youngest daughter, Nora, is 9. If you guys have been listening, chances are you've heard me talk about them, heard, Queen of the C Block during the G1s. I did a short interview with Nora when there was that first Smackdown with nobody, and then John and I did a show, but I kind of taped a little segment with Nora and did an interview. And if you were at the meetup last week, they were with me.
Yeah, members of the Post community.
Part of they're small parts of the Post community. They handed out stickers. They're happy to see Wai and WH and John and even Brandon, who's not here, but bless his cotton socks.
We put them to work early here. Yeah,
that's right. They got rid of some stickers and some sleeves.
Yeah, much appreciated. Yeah.
So I've been a dad. I mean, you're kind of a dad before you meet whoever they are. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all kinds of feelings inside of you. You are nervous. You are concerned about your partner's health and everything that is going to happen. And, at times you are reading to a tummy and you are talking to a tummy, and whoever is in there is listening to you. At least that was what I did. And, when the day comes, whether it's on time or whether it's not, you're never fucking ready. You might think you are, but it's not the same.
So even though I'm kind of technically sitting in like what somebody might call the driver's seat of this thing, I really want this to be a conversation, at least to start between the four of us. And so just feel free to jump in. I'm going to be throwing out questions to Mike. You guys can throw out questions to any of us, and we'll just kind of like go along with what we discuss. I guess my first question to you, Mike, as somebody just brand new to this, I wanted to know for you, at what point did you feel like, being a dad became your identity? You mentioned, being a dad maybe even before the kids were born, but at least for me, I'm still kind of very much in that transitional period between like my single, or at least like, childless self, and I think the role that I'm about to grow into. At what point did you feel at least even comfortable enough to, feel like that was maybe a defining characteristic of yours, to the point where your Twitter handle reflects it?
I think there's a time where it's going to dawn on you that that's your number one job, right? At least that's what I felt, and it was within like, it wasn't a bad thing, but it was a real heavy thing, if that makes sense. Like there was this like, oh, yeah, that's my gig, right? It doesn't like partner is definitely was part of it. You're still someone's son, you're still someone's brother, or whatever that may be, and you have friends, but in the end, you have like a really like strong commitment and contract to your children or child. And that's the most important thing you can do. And I think I was like, maybe before the second birthday, it really was like, oh yeah, okay. This is what I am.
Do you remember the moment when you first, like, saw your child in the delivery room, for instance, like it had it? What was that feeling like for you?
So we were in the hospital for over, oh man, it was a whole day. We were there. It was a snowstorm, and everything was going good. Marina did not want to do any sort of drugs, do everything naturally, yada, yada, yada. After 16, 17 hours of that, the nurses are like, you maybe want to do something, right? And eventually there was sort of an emergency C-section because Vivian was not where she was supposed to be, and they had to do something. But the baby had been push, and it was not going where they wanted it to go. And so Marina had to be kind of put out, right? And I had to get cleaned up and be prepared to go in there because here anyways, I don't know about you guys, but in Toronto and Ontario, they really preach skin to skin with a new baby, so that when the baby comes out, you can kind of put them right on your skin, get that heartbeat regulated. And I remember 13 and a half years ago, everything about this. I remember what music was playing. I remember like the crack.
What was the music? I'm curious.
When they, it's hilarious. When they handed me Vivian wrapped up, right? It was
Limp
It's a
Bizkit.
Wonderful World. No, by Louis Armstrong. And I was like, okay, first of all, it's an amazing song, but get the fuck out of here, really? Like,
Wait a second. So what? There's just a radio playing? Is that it?
yeah, there was a radio in like the surgery. And I was like, okay, that's kind of crazy.
Wow.
I thought there was like a DJ or something that like, drop it. The baby's here. Drop the Louis.
Why didn't I like shave my chest? And I was like, I wasn't expecting this. And I remember Vivian had this little cough when she came out, and they were kind of cleaning her up, and they gave her to me, and the nurse said, if she doesn't stop the cough, we're going to have to take her back and like make sure everything's okay. And the kid like looked up at me and just stopped coughing. Right. And, I had her for an hour while they got Marina cleaned up and sewn up and everything else.
1 hour.
Yeah. Like it was, I don't know. It felt like an hour. Like it was crazy and very, very powerful and like a really strong memory. Right.
What was going through your head in that, what felt like an hour at least?
I mean, when you see your wife in that situation, right, that is a heavy, heavy thing, right? And I was right there beside. And, but then you've got the worry, you've got the joy. There was a lot going on, right? A ton. And all those sort of concerns and worries about anything that could happen, right, in the process, at least at that moment, everything seems okay, right?
I'm going to ask you.
A huge snowstorm outside.
I'm going to ask you just to bring your mic a little bit closer, Mike, if that's okay, just so we get a bit closer and a little less of that rustling, because we want crystal clear audio for prosperity's sake. But, the circumstances you described were very similar to me, except, Pauline was conscious throughout the entire thing. They freezed her as she went in for her C-section as well. And so I wasn't necessarily like, I didn't have like, in many ways I'm thankful I didn't have that little alone time, because I would have freaked out, because I was already freaking out. You know, like you feel like you're ready, you feel like, you know, you've done all the courses, you've done all the prep, but then like you see the baby, like they lift him up behind the curtain, and we were both like, what the hell? Like, we did not expect this. This is all, like, we have to take care of this thing. We got to take this home. Like, it feels like it's somebody else's. And most, like, you know, my whole life I've seen, it's other people. Oh, another baby, very cute. That's somebody else's problem. This time you see this baby, now it's our problem, and it's gonna be our problem for the next 30 plus years, I bet.
Wait, what song was playing?
I don't think there was any song. You know, I didn't know we could. If I could made a request, I would have, you know, chosen something.
But a musicless birth.
Musicless birth, yeah. I did play, like, I think that, like, I played music for him maybe at some point in the day after, and it was like I played the Beatles, something from the Beatles for him, and that was kind of it. So we'll build up to Limp Bizkit soon enough. But Jordan, what about, you know, I want to ask.
I'm ready for the question.
No, honestly, like I'm very curious from your perspective. You mentioned I completely, like, I don't want to have this sort of conversation to, like, what I never want to do in like talking about parenthood is to make people feel like they need to do this, because it is 100% somebody's choice, and whether or not you choose to do this or not does not make your life any more valuable or like worthwhile at all. It is not for everybody. For you, in talking to you, it sounds like, you know, it is still very much maybe on the table, but it's not necessarily something you've given much thought to for yet. But how have kind of you viewed that question, and did you have any thoughts on, you know, any of it? Of that.
Well, I'll clarify. I have given much thought to it throughout my life. By the way, I love that out of 21 episodes, the one that my girlfriend shows up for is the fatherhood episode. So thanks, Lily.
So watch your words very carefully.
Jesus Christ. It's something I've never necessarily dreamed about. And I'm curious for the fathers or the expectant fathers that are here with us, if you relate to that or not. I know many other people that they've known their whole life. That is not only something they want to do, that is the thing in life that they want to do or become. For me, I've always had the sense, like, I'm very confident I'd be a wonderful father. But it's not a thing that I dreamt about, just like I didn't grow up dreaming about owning a certain type of home or like becoming like a doctor or an actor on TV or anything. I had my own dreams, and most of them related to music and pro wrestling in some form or fashion. I'm very open to it, of course. And one of the things that I appreciate most about my girlfriend is that she's willing to engage in these honest, sometimes and for many, awkward or uncomfortable conversations about these types of things. Because, you know, when you're in a relationship with someone, like, these things fucking matter. You know, like the big things of life, and making sure that you're on the same page with people as you continue to commit to one another throughout life. These things literally could make or break a relationship. So I shared with her very early on that I'm certainly open to it. It obviously would have to make sense with the right person and the right commitment. And yeah, I'm very much open to it, but I certainly don't feel any rush at this point in my life. And if it makes sense for me and my partner, then great. And if it doesn't happen, of course, I think I would feel a sense of regret in the sense of like, what if, and what would that feel like? I don't believe that there is any other experience that I could go through that would feel similar to the birth of a child. I'd imagine it's one of the things that makes you feel most human. The joy, the terror, and everything in between. So I would always have these questions of what if I never had a child. But at the same time, as Mike alluded to, like, it's a commitment. It is his number one job. And so I certainly would never want to be in a position where I would go through that journey without a full commitment. And I wouldn't say feeling prepared. I don't know if any of you guys have felt prepared for it, but certainly, at least for me, I'll speak for myself, that it was a thing that I was choosing and committed to.
For you, Mike, like prior to, you know, the birth of your first child, like had you grown up, you know, knowing you wanted to be a dad? What was it like for you?
No, it was something that we kind of discussed later on and came to that, you know, agreement and thoughts, right? And I think you're right. Some people, you know, it's like getting married. It's like that's all they want to do, right? You feel like your life is a certain bunch of steps and stages to get to X, right? And certain ones are along the way. You're like a checklist, right? And you know, I've known people that have tried desperately to have kids and couldn't, right? And that's all that they wanted, you know? And then there's other people who, oops, right? And have become great parents, right? And it's kind of funny that way, right? Like, I think in the end, yeah, like it wasn't something I dreamt about. It wasn't something I assumed of or had given much positive thought about, you know, as I was younger, but I wouldn't change it. Not one bit.
And how about you, Neil? We haven't spoken to you much yet, but I wanted to know, in particular from your perspective, how you've always kind of viewed the prospect of fatherhood and maybe, you know, well, what it means for you today.
I suppose, you know, and like most of us, if not all of us, fatherhood for me, because I'm not a dad and the prospect of it is minimal, is viewed through the lens of my own experience of my father, and seeing perhaps some of the societal differences that have occurred even in my lifetime from when I was a kid, born in the 1970s, when the norm, at least in my part of the world, was when my older brother was on the way, my mum gave up work and my father was the one who went out to work, and that was that. From then on, she was a stay-at-home mum for me as well, and then my younger brother. And so dad's role was certainly there. He was very protective, very loving dad. But I feel like when I observe fatherhood in my peer group, it's rather different to what I experienced when I was growing up. The sharing of responsibilities, nappy changing, all of those sorts of things, much more 50-50 than, not that I remember having my nappy changed, but I just know, you know, from stories and so on, that that was really something my mother did, you know. On a personal level, it's very interesting to hear about that, the kind of, you know, whether it's a goal or not to become a dad, because I hope I'm not stereotyping at all. If Lily's still here, let me know in the chat. But I do feel that perhaps it's certainly a stereotype that women, for hormonal, biological reasons, all of that, become broody, feel a biological imperative, perhaps, to have children in a way that men don't. And I hope that I'm not getting this, putting my both feet in it here when I say that. But I certainly feel like I've known couples where there's negotiation to be had, where perhaps the husband or the male partner isn't quite ready to go there yet, where the prospective mother is. And the other part of it is just on a personal level, for those who are tuning in for this episode who don't normally. I'm gay, and so all my relationships have been same-sex, all my meaningful ones anyway, since my teens, and therefore the prospect of becoming a father in the normal way is not there. You know, it would involve a whole lot of extra steps in respect of a long-term committed relationship, and then goodness knows, adoption, surrogacy, all those sorts of things. And I'm already past the age when most of my people from my year group in school are already parents. So that's just a little wrap up of, and probably quite a broad spectrum of ideas that I had when this topic came up.
Just on the topic of, I guess, timing and biological timing, yeah, I would venture to guess that, like, maybe of a similar age, women, typically the female might be more ready, I suppose. But for me personally, I mean, I kind of hit that age too, like eventually, where like I felt like I had a biological clock. And even like for me, my biological clock at age 38, it was not just necessarily physical. It was because my parents were getting older. My parents are in their 70s and 80s. And I mean, I really want, them to have a relationship with my son. So in that sense, I felt a bit of a rush, or at least not so much a rush, but like that definitely pushed me towards feeling more ready and kind of knowing that I wanted this. But much like, Jordan, like I didn't grow up dreaming of it, it like, but similar to a way, like I didn't necessarily dream of being a wrestling podcaster. Like, a lot of these things are like, at least the way I like to live my life is they just, opportunity presents itself. And then, maybe it presents you with things that you didn't really know that you wanted. And this happened to be one of them. So, you guys all have been wonderful at sharing so far. Mike, I wanted to kind of maybe get back for you and, talking about maybe adopting the identity of being a father at some point. Did you struggle with trying to maintain like your old identity, old Mike, as you started to get busier and busier? And how did you balance those things?
I think I'm not sure if you guys are at that point yet, or any of the other dads in this group right now. There's just a time where you wear it, right? And there are times when you need to remember to take care of yourself and do things for you too. And much like you should make sure that your partner can do things for themselves too, right? And you kind of, give them the support and the time for that stuff to happen. And remember that even though you are a dad or a mom, as the case may be, you are also you as an individual as well, right? And if that means that you have to, once in a while remind yourself that and go out and see your friends, it's important, totally important, because it actually makes you a better person to bring that back, right? Mm-hmm. And as much of it as it is a responsibility, for sure, you do anything all the time, you are going to wear yourself out, right? And you need the space to be the other parts of your identity as well, whether that's work, whether that's partner, whether that's son, whether that's friend, all those, you got to take the hat off, put the next hat on, but remember at some point you got to wear the other hats too, right? Mm-hmm. And super important to, try to live a bit of a balance.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely like a struggle, I think, jumping from, at least like for me, like what felt like somewhat of an independent lifestyle to now, constantly having to focus on or having to keep in mind, not just the baby, but also my partner and just the household.
Yep.
Yeah. Jordan, I'm sorry I muted you. Did you have something to say about any of what we had before?
No, I muted myself. I just couldn't unmute myself. But I appreciate the... I appreciate you sharing that, Mike. I relate to it in the sense that we could apply that to anything, whether it's a romantic relationship or a job role or a particular friend group or whatever it may be. If we become dependent on that sense of identity or become dependent on the people or the tasks involved with that sense of identity, I've at least found for myself, I would tend to run into trouble.
For sure.
And I think being able to carve out our own sense of self whether that's an individual relationship with ourselves or just multiple roles in the world in which we engage, whether it's personal or recreational, professional or otherwise. That kind of balance that you're speaking to, I think is helpful wisdom for anyone.
Totally agreed. Right. And you hit it right on the head, right? Whether or not you're a dad, you know, in your relationship and your work, you do need to like remember who you are too, right? And all of those things, and it'll make everything else better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I certainly know what it's like as a younger or an older teen, younger man, to have an identity wrapped up in being a musician or a particular band, or having an identity wrapped up in a romantic relationship. So, you know, when I started working with Ring of Honor, like that was a big fucking deal for me. Like that was an actual life goal that I chased down for a few years. And I was in my very early 30s when that began. And at that point, I had enough life experience to be mindful of this is just a job. And I have a big, wonderful life outside of this job. And even though it's very exciting, this role certainly does not define who I am.
From, you know, like for me at least, something I kind of am I don't want to say struggle, but like something I'm noticing right now is like I have times where obviously like, you know, I have the responsibility of like, you know, watching the child, but like sometimes I don't necessarily feel like my role is as defined as what it is for the mother who, you know, has a inherent biological connection to the child. So much of it, I think, and even like in the teaching, like is spelled out for, hey, like, you know, if you're a mom, they seem overwhelmed, honestly, with like the amount of things that they have to do. A father's role is not as defined, and you know, obviously, is probably a lot more dependent on like what the other parent needs. But like for you, Mike, how are you able to necessarily determine how much you were supposed to participate and what your duties were as a father in particular?
I always tried at the beginning with Vivian, like to do stuff just the two of us, right? Even if it was, you know, a walk, right, for a couple hours, or go to a museum, right? I mean, she might not know anything that's going on at 2 years old, right? Except that, you know, there's dinosaur skeletons, right? And look at the fish. But that time, you know, it's hilarious that I don't know if you found this way. If you're pushing a stroller or you're at the park with your kids, everyone thinks you're the greatest dad ever. Like dads get it really easy. You do bare minimum shit and you are like, oh, you're such a good dad. I'm like, I'm sitting at the park and I'm not on my phone. I mean, that is not like gold star stuff, guys. Like, but that being the case, I mean, you are giving someone else a break, probably. You are building a great bond on some level. I hear somebody in the background somewhere.
Somebody who maybe wants to get in on the conversation.
That's right. Someone's got something to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that stuff is you can kind of, I mean, it's between you and your partner how you guys are going to work it out, and what the schedules are between your work and sleep and feeding, and how all that stuff is happening. And that's the early days, right?
Yeah.
When maybe it's not bottles or breastfeeding anymore, and it's, you know, learning to eat food at the high chair, right? And that stuff. I mean, you can be in charge of that stuff, right? At times, depending what the schedules are like, right? And there's so much that you can, you know, find the times and the things that, you know, you can do as a dad, you know, whether it's tuck-ins, right? Whether it's getting up in the middle of the night and walking for a bit, or going for a drive, or going for a walk to get somebody like calm back down again, right? All of those like kind of things that you don't need to have, it's not a biological thing that you can provide, right? It is something that you are like, as a caring human being, right? As for your partner and for your child, you can be there and supply those things, right? I
think like, you know, before, like maybe in because like when I've Instagram knows basically like anything that's going on in your life, and I'm sure if you're listening to this right now, if like I'm sure your phones are somehow able to track this, and you're going to be inundated with like, I don't know, fatherhood things and baby things, I'm sure, and your suggested things. So I've just seen like my Instagram is just like dad videos now and like baby videos. So like I think I saw some stat or like some sort of thing that said like before a child arrives, mothers typically think of parenthood as, you know, the baby phase, taking care of it, breastfeeding, all this stuff. Whereas like, at least I found this to be true for me as a dad. I pictured parenthood more so when they got older and when I can actually do activities with them, you know.
Right.
I don't know if that was the case. I don't know if that is the case for all you guys, you know, like you don't even have to have a child to necessarily think of what parenthood is. But yeah, was that the case for any of you?
My earliest memories are all very mother-centric because, as I've already mentioned, it was a very kind of traditional setup in you know, when I was a kid, where dad was at work all day and mom was the caregiver until it was time to start school. But that's not to say he was an absentee at all. You know, taught me to swim at weekends, all those sorts of things. But again, that goes to what you're saying, Wai. That's beyond infancy, which of course I don't remember. But it's more the age where you're perhaps about to start school or preschool, 3, 4, 5, that kind of age where the memories begin. And it's things like, yeah, being taken to sports events or being taken to learn to swim and those sorts of things. I got the you're a really good dad thing when I was being a good uncle, taking my nephew to a WWE house show in Belfast. I don't know what good parenting that would have been, but he's now entirely uninterested in wrestling. I'm trying to pull him back in by exposing him to AEW anytime he visits the house. But yeah, at the minute it's really just football. And he's beginning to get interested in girls, so like there's nothing else.
My dad unintentionally introduced me to pro wrestling. It's actually one of my earliest memories, probably 4 or 5 years old. I still remember him flipping through the channels on the TV, and some WWF show was on, and I asked, like, what is this? And he was never a huge fan, but I think like Bruno Sammartino type of era, given that we grew up in the Northeast, he had gone to some shows and had some interest in it. And he explained what it was, and I asked to continue watching it. And then I remember sometime within the next few days, he and my younger brother came home from Toys R Us with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage action figures. And so he certainly encouraged the interest because he saw that we took a notice in it. And my experience, I guess, of my father at that age was similar to yours, Neal, in that he worked a lot. And as I've gotten older, I've certainly appreciated that more and more. And then like hobby type stuff, like he introduced me to wrestling, he introduced me to Led Zeppelin and things like that. And I remember him as a younger person, as someone who he would show up school events, sport events, and things like that. But he was more like a buddy that I would wrestle with, where I think of my mom as more of the day-to-day caretaker. And as far as really early memories, that is kind of the impression that I kind of have formed of my parents and their roles.
And those, you know, sound like, you know, relatively traditional roles, and it sounds like you had 2 very good samples of them, Jordan. So but you know, it's because I feel like we're maybe still in the midst of a bit of a transitional phase of, like, you know, people blurring those lines, that like me pushing a stroller around. Hey, hello, we have a guest here. Welcome.
After school, everyone's come home.
Hello.
Say hi.
Oh, she can't hear. Hey.
It's unpacking of the lunch bags right now. Sorry, guys. in the kitchen.
Gotcha. But like
This is live at the dad house right now.
Wow, so funny.
Sass.
Oh man,
Yep.
So
Busted.
sad.
Dad's on a pro wrestling podcast about fatherhood.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's because like these transitions are maybe are still unusual that I don't know, maybe it's still we get kudos when we aren't really necessarily doing anything special.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe that'll continue to change. But what does that tell you, Michael? Like what do you think kind of like, the general maybe I don't know, responsibility of fatherhood should be in modern times?
I think you should be as involved as you can be, right? And I think that it's pretty telling that people have such low expectations of what dads can do, right? Like, and what they're capable of, whether that's from what they.
When a woman's dress someone to do it.
I don't know if you caught this. My oldest is chiming
Queen of-
in, and
Queen of C Block.
Queen of the C Block is here. But yeah, like she's saying the same thing, right? That can I talk? Thanks so much.
No, we can't
Do you want
really
to come over and hop in?
yes, bring her over. Bring her
Way
over.
says, "Come on in."
Yeah.
Way says, "Come on in." So come on this side. Come over here. Way says she says she's good. So
Oh, she's good. Okay, fine.
what Viv was trying to say is that if guys do it, it's like a miracle, right? But everyone expects. Do you want to talk, or do you want to stay out of this? Like, which one?
We need her to get a podcast.
Yeah, everybody's like, "Come in."
Yes, Viv.
Yeah. Way saying, "Come in."
Please. Hello, Viv. Okay, well, that's it.
Yeah, that's
All
it.
right.
She's decided she's not speaking more. Watch as I open my mouth, and I'm sure someone will say something.
Maybe Nora wants to join.
Did you feed the cats?
So you guys help out, okay? Yeah. Can I finish doing that? Yes, the cats are fine. Okay.
The one, yes.
Okay, guys, in the living room. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much.
You fed the cats wet food.
Not right now. Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay. Thanks.
This is perfect.
This is really the
See,
perfect.
this is
thing.
what it's like. Okay? Like, oh, is there an audience? Sweet. Awesome.
That's the
Where
clip.
were we?
I don't even know.
All right. Let's go to the next one.
Oh, okay. We were talking about like lowered expectations for fathers.
Lowered
and-
expectations of fathers. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're saying fathers should be as participatory as they're able to. And I completely, I completely agree. And I try to. I still don't feel like I'm able to do enough. Oftentimes, and some of it is because like it's not as spelled out for us, for what there is to do. So maybe it comes down to like having those conversations with your spouse about what you need for them. Like for me, I kind of picture my role as like I'm the assistant director, like whatever this person needs, I'm basically her soldier,
Wait, what are you looking forward to doing?
Yeah, but so I wonder if this is different, for people who have daughters, but like, for me, I suppose, even if I had a daughter, like Mike is a perfect example, like getting her, interested in like my interests, I'm looking forward to like, teaching them about the Marvel Cinematic Universe or like, Star Wars or like, records, like if they're interested in it. Obviously there's no, you can't really push any of that stuff towards your children, but like I think introducing them would be cool. Now, like my parents are significantly older than me. Like my obviously, like as most people, but I would say our age range is probably bigger than most. Whereas I think my parents had me close when they're close to their 40s. In fact, my dad had me at the same age I'm having my son. So I can expect a similar gap, I suppose. But I also feel like with my parents, there's like a real cultural and language barrier. So it's not like my dad ever showed me like the stuff of his childhood, because like growing up in communist China, I don't know how much Star Wars he was getting. Like I don't know what sort of fun he even had at that time. So I'm looking forward to maybe sharing some of those interests, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about right now. But to be quite honest, like we just took him to the mall for the first time, and that was exciting. Even though he couldn't see anything, like he's just looking up at the ceiling, like in his stroller the whole time. But I thought it was novel for me, you know, to go through the whole experience. And as he starts to become a lot more like reactionary to the things that to his surroundings, I'm looking forward to like just simply seeing his reactions to everything, you know. Yeah.
What Jordan said sorry there, Jordan, about music really struck a chord, to not be too punish, because that reminded me that like two bands of opposite sort of ends of coolness that I really took on from my parents. My mum loved ABBA and had all the LPs, you know, on vinyl, and I still love them. Dad was a huge Beatles head, and so am I. And, you know, I got it right from like sort of kiddish stuff, like it was fun to sing along to Obla Dee or, you know, Here Comes the Sun, to you know, the more perhaps meaningful songs. And I wonder how important it is for you and Mike and the people who are going to call in that their kids take on board those passions that you have. You know, if Oscar said, "Stick your Lego, Dad," how what a nightmare would that be for you, Wai?
Oh, to glue it? No, impossible. I'll teach him way better than that. Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
Not what I meant. I meant stick it, you know, as in shove it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't want to do it.
Damn. Wow.
We can't even like fathom that.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I know there are a lot of people joining us who might have shared experiences, and I want to, at this point, open it up to everybody in the Zoom room right now to raise your hand if you have something to say, and I demand you guys, some of you guys that are in here, to call in with some of your experiences, either as fathers, as maybe people that are soon to be, as people that aren't fathers, but maybe have something to say about the whole topic. Raise your hand right now in the Zoom room. And you know what? Because we advertised this man in advance, I think it's appropriate to start off with him. Everybody, please welcome, straight from his North American trip, welcome Dickie Bird to the chat. Oops, sorry, I haven't worked this thing in a while. Dickie Bird, are you there?
Here. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
What's
we
up,
can.
Dickie?
Hey,
Okay.
what's up?
What's going on?
What's new with you?
I mean, what's new with me is there's been a lot, yeah, since coming home. I don't know what to say apart from the fact that obviously I spent 4 weeks over in the US and Canada for the express purpose of spending time with the people that I've actually met in this community. That was the goal, and I don't know where to start. I mean,
You were everywhere, dude.
I was everywhere. I probably more like hanging out with people in the Up Next community. So there's some people who I guess are associated with the World Championship tier with Braden and Davey, who I consider close friends of mine, like Chris Leone. And then obviously getting to New York for Grand Slam and spending that time with John Ceno, who's in this call, Fire Frank, Brandon from New Jersey, and a lot of people. And then getting up to Canada eventually after having a bit of a spat with border control, but that's okay. We got there.
It wouldn't be a trip without some border issue.
Of course.
Yeah.
WH says to me, "You should just move to Canada." And I said, the last time I tried that, they then tried to ban me from the country. So I don't think I want to try that again. But yeah, I was sitting on Brandon Davies' couch, and my other half sent me a message that said, "I just did a test and I'm positive." That's it. That's the message I got. And I was like, oh, well, I'm glad you got COVID while I wasn't there because I'm immunocompromised. She's like, no, not COVID. I don't have COVID. It's a different, a positive for a different test. So that they were,
And that was it. She didn't tell you anymore.
I mean, so she took a test, and I mean, I guess the thing, like, I'll go back a little bit and just say that, you know, we 2015. Okay, I'll just do the thing. 2015. We went to New Zealand for a holiday. I'm from New Zealand, so I wanted to take my partner back home and show her some places and stuff, right? So we went there, and my partner was like, "Oh, I forgot to bring the pill with me, so we don't have the pill," you know. And I was like, "Oh, well, that sucks for the trip, I guess." And she just said to me, "It's like, I don't think I'm capable of having children. I don't think like I can do it, you know." So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we never tried for children, but we didn't not try for children for the last 5 years. Okay. So for the last 5 years, we've just been doing our thing without a problem. And we had got to a point where we believed that we weren't capable of having kids. That was it. And both of us weren't really too upset about that. Like, we were just like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Then I went on this trip, and it's just so funny how it all kind of works out, because like I went on this trip and I just saw so many dads with their kids. I saw this one dad with like a ginger kid, and I was just like, maybe, I don't know, like, and so like I kind of feel a little bit closer to Neal in a certain situation, because at that point, which was earlier in the trip, I started thinking about maybe I want to adopt a child, because I do want a bit of a legacy. It's kind of sad to think that maybe you do this whole life thing and then you end it and then there's nothing at the end, kind of thing. Like, that's one of the only reasons why I've been compelled to children, obviously before I knew I was going to be a dad, was that I want somebody to carry on what I am and what I do. And so you don't have to naturally conceive a child for that. So I was like, you know, maybe we adopt if we can't have kids. Anyway, that was just what was in my mind at the time. And then I went and did a bunch of stuff that ruined my body, and, you know, experienced what, you know, gummies are for the first time and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, it was sitting on Braden and Davey's couch, and then was told that, oh shit, like, not only was she pregnant, but what we came to realize after I got home was that she'd actually been pregnant for a while, and we had not known, because it's another thing as well. She had a Implanon, which is the birth control
IUD,
like IUD, yeah. And at some point she went back to the doctors and said, I want to get this taken out so that I can just be in, you know, whatever, because it kind of it stops you from, I don't want to get too into it, but it stops you from having a period and all that sort of stuff. and they looked at it and they're like, we can't find it. We can't take it out. It's just going to stay there. So, well, I mean, and it was fine. Like, it's fine. But basically, when people say, like, how did you not know that she was 3 months pregnant when you got back? And it's because there's nothing to tell you. I mean, she hadn't had any of the normal female things that tells you that, oh, you're late or anything like that. There is no late. She didn't have anything like that. So that's why I mean, no one's brought it up to me, but I mean, I came back and we're in. You know, I'm not saying we came back and she's 3 weeks pregnant. That's what we thought. We thought that I had done the deal before I came over. Turns out I did the deal months beforehand, and here we are. So that's why it's been a whirlwind, because I came back and people are like, well, you got to tell people because it's 3 months now. I mean, you don't have to tell people, but it's been 3 months. Like, it's not like it's been 3 weeks, and you want to keep it under wraps and make sure that everything's okay and sort of thing. I came back and like we've got pictures that baby is there, you know, proper there sort of thing. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind week. Let's put it this way. Not to mention the fact that I also we also have COVID as well at the same time.
Beaming, eh?
I can't walk. But look. I you know, like it sucks because like I think now looking back, it would have been cool to know this and like hang out with Mike. But you know, I guess I hung out with WH, and that's enough. But I guess what I will say, I guess what I will say is like, I'm pretty happy and I'm pretty positive, and it's very early for me, so I think most of you will call me crazy at this point. Maybe John Cena will take me aside and just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But here's the deal. I have this feeling like it's kind of similar to getting your driver's license. Now, don't get me wrong. It's obviously a bigger commitment than that. I'm not saying it's the same thing. But when I was, and this is a shoot, when I was 22, I still didn't have my driver's license because I was terrified of getting my driver's license. I used to play Grand Theft Auto and I couldn't drive for shit. And I was like, how should I can't get my driver's license. Look, I keep crashing into things or whatever. Right?
I don't know if Lewis Hamilton could drive in Grand Theft Auto. Like, you're designed to crash in that game. But yes, please go on.
The goat. Anyway, yes. But but then I thought to myself, and again, I hope I don't offend a lot of people, but I thought to myself, it's like, and kind of what you were saying as well. It's like there are a lot of people who are maybe I would see as worse than me in some way, shape, or form, who can drive and they have a license and it's totally fine.
I use this logic all the time, Dickie.
Yeah.
Yes. And so again, I don't want to necessarily compare this to parenthood, but like, I don't know, like, and again, I'm trying not to like totally like.
What you're saying is there are people way dumber than you who are capable parents, and that gave you confidence.
Like, I'm 100% committed, and I feel like that is. Like, I'm halfway there, if that's the case. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, because thank you, Wai, because you put it into the best perspective. It's just like there are plenty of other people who are not ready, I am actually, believe it or not, I came back. It was just a perfect time, if anything, and I just went, yeah, and I can do this. Like, I don't have any problem with being able to do this. I'm not scared about this. Yeah, I know it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm not even saying to myself that it's not going to be a lot of work. But if anybody said to me like, "Oh, you shouldn't, you won't, you won't be a good dad" or anything like that, I'd be like, "That's fucking bullshit." Like, surely if I'm at least just focused and I love my kid and I just want to care for it, that I'm a million miles ahead of a lot of other people. And again, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus because it's a kind of a rough thing to say, but it at least makes me feel like excited and happy and like I want to do this, and it is just the absolute perfect time for us as a family. I know not a lot of people get it like that, but yeah, for me, I'm just like, yeah. Even having Davey and Braden like read my email out to them, it just felt so perfect. It was just like, yeah, I went and just hang out with you, and now I'm just gonna be a dad and like, see you later, guys.
To find out about at least, a partial announcement on their couch, no less. You will always have that.
I kind of like that story.
And the due date is 4/20, so Braden is happy.
Oh, goodness.
Were you tripping on those gummies when you got the text?
So I had terribly injured myself over there because I'm just nothing. I didn't do anything. I just I walk I'm 37, but I walked around like I was an 18-year-old. So 3 a.m. walking around Brooklyn getting chopped cheese and and my body started to break down. So I was kind of heavily medicated on Advil, Jelly Kings, and weed oil. So I was, pretty out of it. When she sent me the message, I was just like, I think you did it wrong. And then, so the first one was with, I believe the first test, I was sitting on the couch with Davey. And then 2 days later, I happened to be on the couch and Davey was at work and I was sitting with Braden. And then the second one came through and she's like, oh yeah, this literally says, this isn't like the line thing. This is a test that like says to you, you are pregnant. And so both of them got that. And I just sort of sat there and there's nothing I could do. I was over and, so I was just kind of like, oh, okay. And then, yeah.
Do you know much about? Obviously, I don't want you to do a gender reveal, but are you going to find out? And do you know? And which one is going to be named Braden or Davey?
No. Our child is named Dominic. No matter what the gender. Both of us don't care about gender reveals or surprises. We want to know as soon as possible so that we can just get prepared. I like that both of us are on the same page as that. Like, it's just gender reveals aren't our bag. It's just we want to just be the best parents possible, and so just let us know so that we can start prepping the spare room and have everything. And again, like, we're lucky enough that we live in a house that we have a spare room and all that sort of stuff. So, we're, as soon as we know, you guys will know, I guess, in the sense that it's not going to be I'm not going to have Braden and Davey reveal the gender on their show. Let's just put it that way.
Dickie, Steve asks a good question. What compelled her to take the test in the first place?
Very good question. So she messaged me and she was just like, I feel quite faint and not, like, it's kind of like hot kind of thing. And it was me that jokingly said, maybe you're pregnant. And that was it. And then 2 days later, that's when I got the message saying, I took a test and I'm positive. So that's why there was a bit of a breakdown in what I had said, and then the test. That's why I thought she meant COVID, because I was like, there was a couple of days. But yeah, hot flushes, all that sort of stuff, because we didn't have the whole, oh, I'm late, I better take a test kind of thing. So we, at that point though, we still thought it was 3 weeks, because I thought it was my lasting impression before I left, right? And then when I got back, we went and got an ultrasound, and the guy, she's like, yeah, I'm 3 weeks pregnant. And the guy's like, 3 weeks? You mean 14 weeks? And I sat there and I'm like going through my text messages, like, what happened 14 weeks ago? Like, what are we doing? So the
Neil, he's referencing unprotected sex.
My God.
Yeah, when a man
loves a woman very much. Yeah.
Well, I'll explain later, Neil. It's fine.
Please.
It sounds like you're in a tremendous headspace for all of this, and on behalf of the entire post wrestling community, we want to give you a huge congratulations to you and your partner, Dickie Bird. Wonderful story. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Before I go, I will say that Mike, I'm a big fan of yours, and I will probably be chatting to you a bit in the future and stuff. But I mean, just because like it sucks that I did go to BMV, and I mean it's not your fault that you weren't there, but I did go. My plan was to go to BMV and just like ambush WH and yourselves. WH got ahead of the game and was like, I'm going to take you to lunch. So that's nice. And I did go to BMV and you weren't there and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe it's better that in the future I hang out with you at BMV when things are a bit further along. But
yeah, man, you can message me whenever you need to, man, or any questions. I will answer whatever I can. But seriously, congratulations! Your like happiness is like disgustingly coming through, and it's amazing. I love it.
If Braden sees this, he will just hate me.
Fuck him! Fuck Braden.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Dickie.
Thanks, Dickie.
Congrats,
All
bud.
the best, and keep us updated, buddy. Having a network of parents to rely on, fathers specifically, I think is really important. Pauline, actually, she's on this thing. They have apps now that are essentially, it's like kind of like Tinder, but for like mothers to meet other moms. So like it'll tell you like within the neighborhood, like who else is kind of like, in a similar phase to you, how far along people are along with their pregnancies. And she's made so many friends, and she's like, constantly like sharing information. Hey, at this many weeks, are you also experiencing this? So it's a wonderful support system that she seems to have found. I don't necessarily know if that really exists as much for fathers, so I would at least strongly encourage anybody to reach out to other people if they're willing and looking for a conversation. Thank you to all you guys who have your hands raised, and you're also waiting very patiently. I'm going to now go up next to let's go to Hansi. Hansi, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, what's going on? No, listen, I won't take too much of your time because me not really having, not having a kid or having a spouse, whatever, you know what I mean? So like, I can't really.
But we still you still have plenty to say, I'm sure, about the topic. So please feel free. Yeah.
No, that's cool. Well, first of all, I again with my usual spiel of always comparing one of your guests to wrestlers. I thought Finn Balor was in the house when I saw Mike. When I logged in, for example, you know what I mean. I thought it was Finn Balor.
My abs are nowhere near as good as Finn Balor's. I can tell you that.
No, I'll say, I feel like I like listening to this because I learned a lot from your guys' experience, and it's cool to see because again, if you look at a lot of people who become online personalities. I see some of the worst stuff on social media where I question like, wow, these people are parents and they're not really, you know what I mean? Like they're acting like that's how they're acting, and then these people are parents, right? So it's good to like hear actual people like analyze it and actually, show maturity with, being parents and all that kind of, or trying to become parents and all that. I have severe mental illness, so I like decide along like maybe my in the future it will change or whatever. But until I get my issues sorted out, I don't really want to be a burden and have a kid I'm not sure how to raise raise a child and all that. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to have a female partner have to kind of take care of another grown kid and me. So, like, I'm just glad that a lot of you guys are, like, very mature and doing your thing and trying to figure it out, and you're having a discussion about it, you know what I mean? But, like, it might encourage me to maybe go out and find a partner, settle down with, whatever. But I just kind of, like, being mentally ill, it kind of plays a part because I don't want, if I have a kid, I don't want my kid to, like, inherit my fucked up aspects, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to say that like I learned a lot from you guys talking and your experience and your aspirations, and I wish the best for every single one of you.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you for sharing, Hansi. It's a personal choice for everybody, and I can't necessarily speak so much, to what qualifies somebody. And I'm sure there are many people struggling with mental illness that are very capable parents. So but it is a personal choice for everybody, and we all kind of determine when that is. Hopefully we get the chance to determine when that appropriate time is for us. Thank you as always, Hansi, for sharing.
Yeah, no problem, man. What's it called? I've been enjoying the show, man. I'm learning a lot, honestly, and I think you guys are good examples of people who want to, who are fathers and aspire to be fathers. So, I mean, I'm sitting with like a classy group of individuals. So, thank you for sharing your experiences. I'm sorry I don't got much more to add. You know what I mean? I feel like I kind of like Dickie Bird just came in with a good call.
It's not a competition, buddy. Like you added plenty. I felt,
Okay.
just. It's always nice to hear your voice and to hear your thoughts just on the conversation. It's very much valued. So
Yeah, no problem. Peace out, man.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Hansi, as
Hansi.
always. Let's go up next to Johnny. Johnny, thank you for waiting patiently. Welcome to the Wellness Policy.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Mhm.
Hey.
Hey, excellent. So man, being a father is a trip. I just became on my kids 5 months now, and I
Congrats.
just wanted to thanks. Jump back to Wai's question when I started actually feeling like a dad. I was actually in Toronto this past weekend. I went to Rampage, and we stayed downtown Toronto, which maybe is the number one mistake because it's chaos out there.
Where are you from?
And I'm from Saskatoon.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. We flew out,
Far.
stayed in Hamilton for a smidge, went out, stayed downtown Toronto. And it was the moment where the day we got there, we were kind of pushing our kid a little bit, unfortunately. So we get there off the GO train, land in the hotel. He naps for 20 seconds. We get up, go meet some friends. And he was napping pretty good, but it was around 6 o'clock ish. We were out to supper, and he wasn't really having any of it. He was just kind of it's overwhelming. Restaurants loud. The streets are loud. Sirens everywhere. You don't realize how loud Toronto is until you have a kid. And I felt terrible because he was just kind of whimpering, and I was seeing it. I was like, shit. All right. You know what? My wife, I was like, okay, you just stay behind. You've earned a night off, honest to God. Just hang out with the guys, and my friend there and his girlfriend. And then I took the streetcar back with Simon, my son. And it was kind of chaotic because it's crammed. It's, 8 o'clock at night. There's no space on the train or the tram for a stroller. You're afraid that he's just going to have a meltdown and all this stuff like that. But I just kind of figured I was there with him. And when I was younger, I would do anything for my friends. I just wanted to, have fun, party, see them all the time. But the fact that I made executive decision to be like, okay, my son's upset. I got to get out of here because his happiness is more important than my happiness. So I got out of there, got back to the hotel. He was right as rain, happy guy, went to sleep. And I felt better. I texted my wife. I was like, hey, Simon's sleeping. She's like, great. I'm going to have a good time tonight. So it's just something like that. So, being a father, it's weird stuff.
It's incredibly ambitious to do any sort of traveling with an infant, and the distance from like you got on a plane, obviously. And man, how was that whole process?
So he's a trooper. Like, he was actually really good on the train or the plane. He was only really bored. He wasn't yelling or anything like that. His demeanor is like pretty chill. He's only upset if he's, tired or hungry. And that's the most you could ever ask for in a child. I'm sure. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop at this point, really. But on the plane, like, he was great. People loved him. Of course, I'm afraid that he's going to have a meltdown and we're going to be hated and stuff like that. But no, he was great. So it's like we got on the plane, got off. He took everything in spades, and I was just honestly surprised. If anything, the thing he hated the most was traveling in a baby seat in the car because he doesn't like to be squished. So I think that was pretty much the only thing he hated.
Very interesting.
I think it's amazing when those father bear instincts kind of kick in, right? And you're like, I got to protect my kid. I got to think of a way out. I got to think of what's important in this situation. And also, how am I going to get my kid out of this situation, right? And also trying to keep calm during the whole thing as well and not lose your shit. But I totally recommend traveling with your kids young because it's free. Right? You don't have to pay for plane tickets. But if you can find like a flight that's like an hour and a half, that kind of thing, right? It's a great learning experience, right? If you guys are up for it, or just get what you need, figure out a way. Sometimes it's amazing to have a break from your routine, right? And go see something else where you'll figure out naps, you'll figure out feeding and that kind of stuff, right? When you have 2 or 3, it's a different story for sure, right? But those first, like, say 6 months to a year where you can kind of keep everybody bundled up and, not wandering around, it's a good experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like, when we did the trip, it was kind of like, it told us everything we kind of needed to know if we ever decide to do something a little more ambitious. It's like, if we go there, now we know that we don't want to stay downtown core somewhere. We want to maybe do an Airbnb out in the suburbs kind of thing. Just little things like that. So
thank you, Johnny, very much for me, the encouragement to maybe, get out of the city once in a while. But thank you very much for sharing. And
I would recommend the Ripley's Aquarium. Simon loved that one. So
all right. You and Drake.
Right, thanks, guys.
Drake took Rihanna into that aquarium. You guys know that?
Oh, man.
They have a tattoo. They have like fish tattoos.
Oh, man. That's serious then. All right. Thanks, guys.
Congrats, Johnny.
Congrats, Johnny. I wanted to maybe throw this question out to you guys and also the room, but for me, I kind of struggle, at least at this period, to maintain some of my friendships and relationships that I had prior. Because this phase is so all consuming. For you guys, have you guys kind of like managed your relationships with people that have experienced new fatherhood, and have you lost friends as a result? Like, what's it been like for you guys?
I've certainly lost the level of contact that I used to have with friends before they had kids. But I'm old enough and ugly enough to realize that that's life. Other people maybe have moved physically, geographically for work, those sorts of things. And my attitude, and I've spoken to Jordan about this, is that, well, look, I have more freedom than they do. I have fewer responsibilities and perhaps less pressure on my time than they do. So I like to be the generous one and say, well, look, I will, if you're in Dublin, I will take the 2-hour drive to Dublin because it's harder for you to do that with your kids I'm on my own, it's easy. So I think it's a bit of give and take, really. If you're interested, if you're a good friend, basically, and you want to maintain those friendships, then I think you make allowances for the amount of time that other people have. And, you know, I don't think it's really very much to ask to do that. You know, I know, for example, on a much smaller and sort of more trivial basis way, if I text you, that I may not get an answer very quickly because you could be minding Oscar for a couple of hours or something like that. You know, it's just, and on, you know, then there are levels and levels and levels where that go up to a weekend away where perhaps one or other of the parents is taking the kid or kids to their parents so that we can all get together, and you know all the university friends or whatever can have a bit of a weekend together. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I feel like it's something that comes with age, is just that, and parenthood, is that it's more of a logistical exercise to hang than just calling round at somebody's door.
Certainly. Let's keep on with some of these calls because we still have a few of them and we want to devote enough time to every single one. Chris Elliott, welcome back to the Wellness Policy.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Chris.
What's up, Chris?
How are we doing?
How you doing? Very well.
I'm not so bad. Yeah, parenthood's a hell of a thing.
How long have you been a parent?
My eldest just turned 13 last week. So it's
Wow,
a long
awesome.
time above us. There is all three of them.
My goodness.
So,
Oh, sorry. Three, it just sounds like, oh my God.
Yeah, it can be a bit much sometimes. But I mean, going to like the conversation earlier about being prepared for it. Me and my fiance, we were completely unprepared for it. Our eldest was 10 weeks early, which was crazy. To the point where she thought she was going through Braxton Hicks, which, for those of you who don't know, it's basically the body. It kind of acts like contractions, but it's not. So she went through that for like, it was a good day where she thinks that she's having this Braxton Hicks, and then I think it was like after, I want to say it was like 30 hours of that, she's like, this is getting too much. So we went to the hospital and they were like, no, you're having the baby. So it was, I think it started about lunchtime on the Friday. It was around about 5 o'clock on the Sunday by the time that he was born, which was just insane. And we were so he was in the special care unit for 2 months, but we were just like, what the hell are we doing? What do we do? And I think in a way it initially affected how we were, because we didn't necessarily have that bonding, because he's in an incubator, he's away, we can't kind of like just do what normal parents would do. So it was tough. But yeah, it was a crazy couple of months, and but now it's difficult, especially the last few years, because with my mental health, with DID, it's kind of become part of our lives, because part of my DID includes, I will, like, if I get stressed out, I can collapse. And so it's teaching the boys who are 13 and 11, the boys who have been incredible. They were taught very quickly how to put me in recovery position in case that was to go on. And I'll always, and even Pandora, my youngest, who's 5, she'll I'll get told when I come round, she'll come up to me and go, Daddy, I told Mummy that you'd collapsed, and she'll ask if I'm okay. And all three of them are just brilliant, and it's
amazing.
It's difficult for them. I imagine, because it's like, oh, Daddy's always ill, Daddy's this, that, and the other. But it's they're amazing.
Thank you for sharing like that perspective. It sounds like you have a wonderful system that you and your wife have created with your family. That is awesome.
Chris doesn't look old enough to have 3 kids.
Yeah, what the hell?
I'm 38.
Let me ask you, Chris, like what's it like, as your kid is entering the teenage years? I mean, this is a question for you and Mike. What's it like to raise a teenager? Because I'm that probably terrifies me way more than, the newborn phase.
I think we had a bit of a preview earlier.
Yeah, I guess so.
You guys got a small sample. It's amazing. It's definitely a different bunch of challenges for sure. But I think Chris can probably agree with this one. Every step you go along the way, there's just when you think you got something under control and you feel good about stuff, and everything changes, right? Like whether it's 100%. School, whether it's friends, whether it's, there's always something as soon as you get comfortable, some wrench gets thrown into the system, it seems. But that's learning on your feet, right? And that's like with anything, right? And if you can roll with it in whatever other parts of your life, you can probably do it with this too, right? And might take you a week, might take you a month. Being the dad to a teenage girl is a big change. And on the other hand, it's completely awesome, right? We have different conversations. Our relationship is different than it was 2 years ago, right? And some people kind of get stuck in this kind of thing of nostalgia, right? And they're like, do you wish it was like back when they were a baby, or do you wish it was back when they were, just starting school? It's like, no, like now is where it's at, right? And I wouldn't never change. And now, in 5 years is going to be a different story, right? Or, next week is going to be a different story. And it's super cool to be, you have all those memories, right? Of all those things that were, right? But that's brought you and them to where you guys are now.
Wonderfully said.
100%. It's that progression of like, and I've kind of got it in one go at the minute. So I've got my daughter who's 5, who's at school, but she does a lot of things where it's like she's learning stuff. And then with the boys, as I said, they're 11 and 13. So they kind of become too clever for their own good at times. And it's trying to guide them through. Okay, so that was fine. Like you were able to do that a few years back. Don't do that now. And it's guiding them through, and trying to get them to understand. Look, I know you want to be able to do this stuff moving forward and be at this level, but you've got to work your way up to that point. And as Mike said, it is enjoyable when you see them as moving forward with their lives, and it is exciting to see where they're going to end up and how they're going to end up.
Thank you so much, Chris, for participating and giving us your perspective. It is always valued. Let's move on here with a few more calls here. We go up next to this person who luckily has the day off of work because his kid deemed it so. Mr. John Cino, welcome to the Wellness Policy.
Hello, how's everybody doing today? I'm so glad to be able to catch this live. Like I always end up working, but today just so happened that my son just wanted to go home from school, and I'm like, this is great. And it's ironic, the episode about fatherhood.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
And it's been great to listen to all these different perspectives and stories. I guess I don't really open up too often, so bear with me. But my fatherhood's a little bit different. Like the first 5 years were pretty smooth. We tried our best. Everything was good. Took my son to Disney World. All these things that I didn't really get a chance to do myself. And then March 2020 happened, where I lost my full-time job. My relationship of 10 years ended, and she literally just left me with the kid. And oh yeah, COVID happened, and now I'm stuck locked down with this 6-year-old at the time. It was tough. And two things that really kept me going is, number one, the post community was just there for me. If I didn't have that, I don't know who I'd go to. Like, most of my friends are long gone, married to a kid, so I really didn't have anybody to go to. And my son himself, just like the times when I wanted to give up, and I'm just like, this is it. I'm like, what would he think? You know, what would I can't just give up. I have to do my best, no matter the circumstances, no matter what's going on. I have to try my best. And it's been tough, I'm not gonna lie, but thankfully, you know, with help and a little bit of guidance from, luckily I have my family to help me out when I can. But I've been pretty much been a single dad all through COVID, and then recently it's like more like 5 out of 7 days of the week I'm a single dad, but it's still like, you know, majority me. You know, with the school stuff and homework and all that, it's been pretty much all me, and it's been pretty tough. I'm just happy that, like, you know, I have other people to talk to and kind of go through this.
I'll say for me, Sino, like, you know, you're somebody who I feel like I've always been aware of, but, you know, we haven't necessarily been friends, like, probably until that period. And I consider you, like, you know, one of the people I communicate most with on a day-to-day basis. And I think I don't even know that much about, like, kind of like, you know, what you've been through this entire time, but I appreciate hearing about it. And it also tells me that you're somebody who, you know, under that amount of tremendous stress, you somehow, like, managed to, like, react, you know, in the most positive of ways, and you've seemed to have created, like, some wonderful networks of people. Your output in terms of, like, what you do for us at Post Wrestling is incredible. So I really admire just how you've turned a bad situation into, you know, like, at least for me looking at it, like, a very positive one.
I think the most important part is, to my son, nothing doesn't feel out of the norm, if you know what I mean. Everything's pretty smooth. Like, he doesn't see any sort of, like, fear in me or any sort of, like, uncomfortability. Like, it feels like he's having a great life. He's always smiling. Everything is great. And that's the most important part, I think, to me, is for him to be raised knowing that, like, everything's okay. Everything's fine.
It's a really important thing, though. Right? Like,
yeah.
To be able to, sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, cut everybody off. But, you know, if you can provide that sort of stability, right? And, you know, as we go through crap and deal with stuff, and, you know, try still to be like, no, this is your home. This is your space. This is your life, right? And, you know, whoever the parent is, right? I know we're talking about fatherhood here, right? But it's both sides too, right? You know, provide that solid base for the kids, right? Good times and bad, right? They don't need to know what the bad times are, right? Doesn't matter. We still got breakfast out, right? What are we doing? We're going to school, all right? Let's do it, right? Good stuff. And that's where having those outlets afterwards, right? Where you can talk to your friends that are in the same boat, that you have confidence that you can, like, you know, unload that stuff to them and share with them, right? But, you know, you still put a bit of the facade on, right? For sure.
Jordan, you have something to say?
Yeah, from memory, I feel like I first started interacting with you was during that time of lockdown, mostly in chats of, you know, Twitch streams with Braden and Davey. And I really appreciated you as being one of those people that made lockdown much more enjoyable for me, certainly. But I don't know you that well, and this was all news to me. So I just want to express my respect to you, and I hope we get to hang in New York and New Jersey next month.
No, absolutely. Yeah, thank you to all you guys. Like I said, if I didn't have the post wrestling community and just, like, stuff to do, like just doing the reports and just, like, doing these, it might be like a stupid 15-minute podcast for some people, but to me it's, like, really important, the fact that it keeps myself busy and actually gives me something to look forward to through this whole lockdown. Like, I honestly don't know what the hell I would do if I didn't have, like, post wrestling. That's kind of corny to say, but it's the honest truth. It's like it really kept me like motivated and kept me like busy to do something. And then at the end of the day, I'm still having dinner with my son, and everything is still normal. We're still watching the newest Marvel movie, whatever the case is. So yeah, it's been very different. It's not what I expected. It's not what I would have predicted. But you don't really like write your own story, right? It just kind of gets dealt to you, and this is how it is. So.
And John, just the same as Jordan, I don't know you as well as I would like to, and I'm looking forward to hanging out in New York, as short a trip as it is, so that we can get to know each other a little better. Because my overriding impression of John Cena was what a great guy this man is, and therefore with that comes, I'm guessing, a great dad as well. Whenever I see you with Lorenzo, whenever I see some of the things that you share that he's produced, whether it's like art class or those sorts of things, it's just, you can really see the pride and the love there, and it's tremendous. So looking forward to hanging with you in just under a month.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet all the guys that I didn't get the chance to meet in Toronto or even during Grand Slam week. Like a Neil, like a Jordan, Andrew Thompson. Speaking of art, it's funny that you say that because I just cleaned up a little bit today and I found this little art project that Lorenzo drew that made Lorenzo's life when he found out that, like, in his eyes, he's like, his art's been published by a post wrestling cassette tape. So that's always
amazing.
It's like one of his biggest accomplishments in life. So it's hilarious to see, like, he's actually like a part of the post wrestling canon in a way. It's pretty funny.
He absolutely is. I was so like happy, to see that. And I look forward to maybe seeing his growth, as I feel like I'm relatively connected to, because you're so I guess he's around all the time. It feels like when I'm talking to you. So shout out to Lorenzo.
And I'm happy that we have, some more, post wrestling dads, Wai Ting, Dickie Bird, Braden Harrington. Oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to say that. But I'm just like happy to see like everybody else is like kind of joining this post dad club. It's like really cool that we have like this little connection beyond wrestling now that we can meet up and don't even have to talk one sentence about wrestling. We just talk about kids all day. And I think that's beautiful.
It's so true. Like I'm honestly incredibly blessed that like I even have you guys to talk to, and people like Jordan and Neil who are like so attentive and are willing to like engage and listen to conversations, even if like they're not necessarily, and if it's not necessarily about them. And I know our demographics, like the people listening to these podcasts are pretty much like, around the same age as us. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. So, we're not looking to get on TikTok to try to, attract that much of a younger audience anytime soon. Thank you so much, Sino. Appreciate it.
No, thank you. I've been meaning to like get this off my chest for a while, but I just kind of didn't just want to randomly say it, but this is the perfect show to do it to. So thank you for everybody for listening to me, and thank you for everybody telling their own story. Everybody has their own path to fatherhood, and I think it's amazing.
I think that was a pretty heavy one there, man. It's awesome that you let it go or gave it to us, and it was wicked. I know it probably felt heavy and sad, but I hope you feel good. Because you and I have interacted a bit. We see each other, comes high, cross paths and stuff like that. But I'm glad you told us that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sino. Let's go up next to, we have a couple questions here in the room that I kind of wanted to get to maybe before we get out of here to our final call from Steve. But, this one might be more for Mike. And maybe for me, like recently too, Professor Kevin says, how have the fathers here dealt with postpartum depression and other mood disorders that spouses may have experienced? Did you have any experience with that? I see or Mike, if you guys wanted to chime in.
I think the first one was different, and the second one, I'm just minding my words here. Sorry, guys. Definitely, there was more of a postpartum thing after Nora, and I think on my part, I didn't really recognize it very well, and I definitely was not at my best with that. And when number 2 hits, it's not the same as number 1, where you have all the focus in the world. And when it's 4 years later and there's rubber, on the road, and you guys are trying to like accomplish other things, and sometimes you really need to listen, right, to what the other person is going through, and ask the questions too, right, and not get so wrapped up in everything else that's around there.
For me, like,
I don't know about you, Wai. Sorry, go ahead.
well, for me, like, I think I don't know what it was like for you, Mike, maybe like, when your kids were born, but for me, I'm thankful that a lot of the reading material that we were given, a lot of like sort of like the, I don't know, online courses and whatnot, like said a lot about like postpartum depression, or at the very least told mothers to expect the possibility of it. And for that reason, I think Pauline was probably a bit more prepared to experience it than maybe people from prior generations, and she definitely went through it. Like, the mood swings are very real, and just kind of that feeling is very real, and you could see it on her, and I felt kind of helpless, not really being able to do much to help her through it, but that's not necessarily true, because what you can do is just to try to be understanding, try to not take things personally if you get into a bit of a disagreement, and to just, again, try to be that support as best as you can, and to check in. That's something I learned constantly, and that's something that's important to do probably at all times anyway. Just the practice of just asking, hey, how are you doing? It's something I definitely had to learn to do a lot more of, and I still struggle to do enough of. But thank you for the question, Kevin. One more question here. Okay, we go to Johnny, who says, did you guys ever feel guilty going out on your own for the first time without the baby or your partner? I certainly did. Yeah. Just because, again, you're left with your partner, like, handling so much of the responsibility, and they can't go out, that like they can't necessarily like meet up with their friends without at least a great deal of prep. So that certainly hit me, but I sense that it gets better, and that it's only temporary, and hopefully you have a good support system around you.
Wait, can I ask a really dumb question as a
no dumb
non-dad?
Questions here. Yes.
At what age, can you look after Oscar independently with expressed milk or that kind of a thing?
Well, I do overnights, Pauline will pump a bottle, and that's what I'll use to feed him. She can go. She's only been out maybe for extended amounts of time. I'd say maybe 2-3 hours at the most. So we haven't necessarily experimented with anything beyond that. But I imagine as the weeks progress, maybe we'll start to feel a bit more comfortable. Whether or not she can take a full weekend off, even for instance, that might come a bit later. But I'm still learning a lot myself. Mike, you have anything to say to that?
Oh man, I remember the first time I got left when Marina went out, and it was I think about 3 months in, and it was terrifying for the day. I'm like, how am I going to handle it? My dad showed up and he was absolutely useless. Right. And but you know what you do? This is what I found. You find the tricks, right? And the things that you can do to soothe them, the things that you can do to, get them to go to sleep. And whether that's your baby Bjorn, or whether that's the stroller, or whether that's going for a drive, right? You'll get a bag full of tricks for the new dads out there that, your go-to things, right? But man, that first day, that first time, I'm like, are you ever going to stop crying? Mom will be back at some point, but are you ever going to stop crying?
Let's go to our last phone call here of the day, and that goes to Steve. Steve, who may or may not grow weed, welcome to the Wellness Policy.
How's it going, guys?
Hey, Steve.
All right. So, yeah, I guess I'm the grizzled old vet when it comes to this group, that I'm already a grandfather.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Really?
Yeah. I've got it. And I got one on the way in about 2 weeks or so. Yeah.
Congratulations. So, wow.
Yeah. So a lot's going on there. So, yeah, I've done it all. Been there. My oldest is 27. My youngest is 18.
Wow.
You do not look old enough, Steve.
Yeah.
It's the weed. I'm telling you.
It's got to be.
Legalize
The thing
it.
is, though, I was a young dad, right? I had my first child when I was 18. I was stupid. I made it work. I stepped up. I was there. Some people aren't by that age. It's hard to be that mature at that age. And I mean, I wasn't always that mature at that age. But yeah, I made it through. Kids did all right. Had two.
Hold on, let's go back, because like, I mean, that's something that I don't know if we've touched on, but what an opportunity to speak to somebody like at 18 having to become a father. Like, can you take us back to that realization, and how did you cope at such a immature age?
I don't even know. It was actually, I was only 18 for like 2 weeks.
Oh my God, you were a kid yourself.
Yeah, it was insane. It was really insane. It was good that I had a good family, like, around me. I had a lot of young kids in the family. Like, my cousins were all a lot older than me, so they all had babies. So I got very used to being around babies. My mom did daycare when I was growing up. So, like, that kind of part of it, the looking after part, I wasn't so foreign to. Like, it was like I had enough. Like, I changed plenty of diapers by the time I had my own child. So yeah, that part was a little easier. The whole like day to day of just trying to be a father, and also like trying to finish high school and trying to find a job. I'm literally on a bike with a backpack full of resumes. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, it was something, but I made it. I had a lot of help, and it was a struggle for the first few years, but things settle off, and then you get used to being a parent, right? So, and yeah, it was all right, but I had one of each. I had a boy and a girl, and then I was like, any more is doubles. So around 25, I got my tube stopped because I just was like, I'm done, right? Well, then my relationship with my kid's mother ends. I get with a new girl. She has a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. So all of a sudden, I have 4 kids.
Oh,
right.
my.
So that's where the age group, the 27 to 18, is between 4 of them, right? So so that's the other side of it, is being a stepfather as well. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of different things that you got to learn when it comes to being a stepfather, when it comes to like boundaries, things like that, making sure you're not stepping on father. You're not trying to be too much of dad, but at the same time, you still have to be, especially living together, you have to be an authority figure, but when you first meet them, you're a cool guy. You're just like, hey, kids, Transformers? Yeah, look at it. Have you ever heard of a power bomb? Here, I'm going to do that to you on a couch. It's like, and like, yeah, I was power bombing my first son when he was 3 months old. Just these little, whoop-doo, But yeah, so I mean, yeah, you're the cool guy, and then all of a sudden you all start living together, and it's like, oh, now I have to tell you what to do. Like the first time I had to give my youngest daughter, like my oldest stepdaughter, first time I had to give her any shit for anything, she had a meltdown because she did not see me in that way. I was buddy, and all of a sudden I was parent, and that was a transition, but like we made it. But yeah, there was a while there where it was pretty like, it was just like, it wasn't even hard. It was just awkward. It was just like, there was things hiccups that would come up along the way. Right. I also had, my father wasn't in the picture so much. So I grew up with a stepfather. Right. And he was great. But I mean, so I kind of I'd already grew up with that being on the other side of it. So I kind of had a certain amount of sensitivity to what they were going through. Right. So I think that helped, but
I'm very curious to know about that, like juggling, that the role between disciplinarian and also maintaining a friendship. Like, what do you have any tips for how you can strike that balance?
You just got to know when to turn it on, turn it off. Really, like it's just like being like a boss at a job or anything like that. Like it's just you could be the cool guy, you could be the buddy, but when it's time to be a boss, you got to learn how to like find that line, right? And people got to understand, Yeah, it's not easy, but yeah, you want to be cool, but then you gotta, every once in a while, you gotta be like, oh, that's not cool. So,
sounds like you're running through the gamut of just every aspect of fatherhood. Mike, you had something to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So with the stepkids and your kids, like, is it all the time everybody's together? Or do you guys like do transitions or?
No, my kids, when the split first happened, it was very like 50-50 custody at first. And then it kind of went to mom because kids got to be teenagers, the mom had less rules. So that was basically that. And and then it was kind of so there was, and now like they're older, so it's like, I mean, I think we only have one of them living here now. The other ones, all of them are grown up and moved out. But yeah, so it was like my like wife's now her. It's hard to like juggle all this. But my wife now, her two kids lived with us full time, and they would see their dad on every other weekend stuff, right?
Right.
And and then my kids would. Honestly, it wasn't even like a schedule with my kids. They would just kind of come in and out. It was just like I'd talk to them, and because I always had an open communication, so I would just like, oh, you want to come by, come on by, and that kind of stands to this day, right? So, they would come for the weekend. We go on trips. We do whatever, But yeah, and my kids and her kids get along amazing, right? So that's
great.
Really,
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve, for is this your first call on the Wellness Policy? Have you called before?
No, I think I called for the weed episode.
Okay, of course.
That was like
appreciate it. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and experience, and you seem like an incredible resource in more ways than one for anybody who is going through any aspect of what you've lived through. So great way to end the show.
Suck. Boy, teenagers suck too. They just become, because they're just the hormones. They just become angry assholes. Anything you say, what do you want? I was cool. What?
Say that to me. You can't say that to me.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh my god.
But it's just karma, isn't it?
I have to. Yeah.
But isn't that just karma?
I don't know what you guys did when you were teenagers, but I bet you were dicks at some point.
Yeah,
let's be honest. And fuck, it comes back. Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly. But like Mike said earlier, you have those moments where you're just chilling and you're talking to them on a whole different level, where they're not, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you're a lot more grown up than I remember, and it's cool to see those transitions, like,
sure, for sure.
Even now, seeing my son be a dad, that's super, super cool. So,
wow. What a trip. Amazing. Thank you so much, Steve. Congratulations.
All right, cheers, guys.
All right, one last thing here. We go back to Dickie Bird, who specifically requested this airtime because he has something to say. So
and completely selflessness. I wanted to shout out somebody who's close to myself and Neil, and Neil and I, Adam Joyce, who's a listener. He's a background player, but he's having a kid in a couple of weeks, and he's someone who he's the first person that I shared my information with. I love the man so much, and I'm wishing him all the best. He's going through a lot with his family right now, but I love the man so much, and him and I just, as soon as I had my news, I just was like, oh, you and our kids are just going to be, even though he's in Ireland and I'm in Australia, like we're going to be the same. So, Adam, if you're listening, I love you so much, and I'm hoping the best, obviously, for your journey, and I'll be there as well. So that's all I wanted to say, because I wouldn't want him to listen to this episode without him without him not being mentioned. So thank you so much, Wai. That's all.
Shout out Joycey. Congratulations to him. Shout out the professor as well in the chat room right now. I don't know how public that news is, but I guess I just made it public. I'm sorry. I'm assuming the chat room is seen by everybody. But anyway, hey, like it sounds like there's a wonderful kind of network of people that we can all rely on to discuss about some of these issues. And as always, I direct people to the Discord, postwrestling.com/Discord, where we can enter this sort of conversation. I noticed there's a family life sub channel that at this point is a lot of wonderful photos And I'm wondering if there's room to maybe expand it to more like, of a question and answer sort of support system for people that have those as well. So we can always use that. Of course, you can also use the wellness policy channel as well. And huge thank you to all of you guys for joining us. Anybody who called in, and we had some like really incredible like calls from people here. And I feel like for such a broad topic, I'm going to pat ourselves on the back and say we did a pretty good job of like, covering our bases, from many aspects, at least, of parenthood. So thank you, everybody who contributed with your thoughts and opinions and experiences. And especially thank you to Mike Murray for joining us as a special guest. Mike, where can people find more of you?
You can find me at Scarborough Dad on Twitter. DMs are open. Shoot me a line. Tell me a funny fucking story. I love it all. Once in a while, I'll be on some show with Park or John or you. Neil and I have a secret chat group that we should probably resurrect at some point. And Neil is a saint, okay? Neil is a saint. And
No, I'm not.
Yes, he is. And throughout COVID, this dude has been very supportive and a wonderful sounding board. So stuff it, Neil.
Get out of town, Mike.
Completely vouch for that. Of course, I want to thank Jordan Goodman and Neal Flanagan, two people who, have graciously, I think, offered the space for me to tell my story, but also are gracious enough to like be such great participants in a conversation that, that might not necessarily be focused on them. Thank you guys for being a part of the conversation. Thank you for keeping the show alive and doing so well with it. Anything you guys would like to say to close?
Yeah, real quick. Wai, when you and I now a couple years ago started having conversations about potentially doing this, it was always, at least in my vision, to make this community focused. I think the show works best when it is a community, and I think today was a great example of that. So I want to thank everyone. Speaking of post-wrestling community, Robert S. Pearson is a big reason why we'll all be coming together next month in
Real
New Jersey
digital
and
media.
New York. And he's very actively involved right now with a campaign, the Doe Fund, DOE.org. And very briefly, what the Doe Fund is, it's led the charge against homelessness and recidivism by providing economic opportunity, housing, career training, and supportive services to homeless and formerly incarcerated men. So Robert has gotten a bit louder this month about raising awareness and funds for that fund. So again, DOE.org. I publicly want to thank Robert for putting in a lot of effort and work and vision for making all this happen next month when we get together in person.
Absolutely. Completely agreed. You can find him at Jordan Beatwell. You can find him at Neal Flanagan, both on Twitter. What do we have coming up next month on the wellness policy?
Well, we're talking about the small things. Today we talked about the big stuff, fatherhood way. Next month, we'll be talking about religion. How do we feel about this?
Hey, this was a late decision, almost game day decision, for us, because we had another topic that we were going to do, and then unfortunately our guest couldn't make it, so we're going to save that one. We're not going to announce it yet, but what better backup than religion?
Neil and I had a pretty interesting conversation privately about this a couple weeks ago. Religion, spirituality, this idea of where do morals and belief systems evolve or form within each of us. And I felt very engaged and energized by it. And I think it'll be a fun chat to have on the internet.
Likewise, I look forward to this. This is where I'm going to rely on you guys to kind of lead some of the all the conversation. Really, I'm going to be a very active participant, and I hope you guys will all join us as well. I hope we see a very similar turnout, great turnout, and great contributions today from the post wrestling community. Next month, I think we already have our date, don't we? Let me just get it up here. Mark it in your calendars, everybody, okay? Make the time to join us in November on the 10th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. I believe, is that still 8 p.m. in over there, Neil?
Yes, I think so. The clocks go back at the end of this month in the UK. I don't know when they change in the US and Canada, but we'll keep everybody updated in the Discord and on our social media.
That is correct, yes. So until next time, this is the Wellness Policy, and how do you sign this? How do you sign off, Jordan? What have you been doing?
You say goodbye.